I now want to look at the differentiation process and the integration process, and then we'll look at the similarities between them. Now, let's start with the differentiation process, what you're familiar with. Now, suppose I have a polynomial, say x to the power n. So this is my function. If I want to differentiate this, the first step will be to multiply by the power. So the first step will be multiply by the power. Now, if I multiply by the power, I'll end up with n x to the power n. The second step will be to subtract 1 from the power. So subtract 1 from the power. And we shall end up with something that you're familiar with, which will be nx n minus 1. So this is our result at the end. Now, the anti-differentiation process is basically the reverse process of this. So let me just write this clearly. Anti-differentiation, which is basically the reverse process. Now, for the reverse process, we'll start with our final result. Say we have a certain polynomial. So suppose here we have a certain polynomial x to the power n. This is the function that we have. And then we are going to basically follow the same process, but in the reverse order. So starting from here, the opposite of subtract 1 from the power is add 1 to the power. So add 1 to the power. So what I'll end up with here will be x to the power n plus 1. And then the next step will be the opposite of multiply by the power. So the opposite of multiply by the power is divide by the power. And what we'll end up with here will be x to the power n plus 1 over n plus 1. So this will be our result. So what we are basically trying to say here is, when you are integrating a polynomial, so in general, if f dash x is equals to x to the power n, then f of x, which is the antiderivative of that, will be x to the power n plus 1 over n plus 1. Now remember, you have to add c at the end. And I explained that in the previous video. So this is the process of how you can integrate any polynomial. So if you're given any polynomial, you can use this process, this formula, to basically integrate it. Okay, and I want to look at some, important things, language and notation in the process of anti-differentiation or integration. Now, just using the previous example that we looked at, um, so we usually use a symbol looking like an S but not an S. This is what we call the integral symbol. So integral symbol. And of course, we have to have a function that we want to integrate. So 2x plus 3, and say we are integrating with respect to x. So this is basically the function that we want to integrate. It has a special name. We call it the integrand. Of course, here we are integrating with respect to x. So variable of integration. Okay, of course, if we integrate, we'll end up with an antiderivative. So if we integrate this, we'll end up with x squared plus 3x plus c. I'll explain that later on. Now this one here is what we call the constant of integration.